Are you guys ready to talk about decorating? Woo! All right. Well, my name is Matt. I am the children's pastor at the Pilot Church, and so we did Keepers of the Kingdom last June, and so we will be going through today how we're going to do this. I'm going to go through a whole bunch of photos. We'll be talking about what's in them, how we made them, how we mount them, how we hang them, and all kinds of things like that in here. I'm going to have probably 100 different pictures to show you. There is a PDF that you'll be able to get with these slides on it, so you don't feel that you have to take a photo of every single one of my photos if you don't want to, but you'll be able to download those, the PDF that has about 5 per page and things like that. And so we're going to work through some hallway and classroom decorations. At the end, we'll move on to our big set and what we do as a set. I've also got some photos from our other pilot church that does things differently than we do. And then we'll wrap up with just some little tools and tricks of the trade that I like to use. All right, so let's go ahead and jump in and get started. We're going to start off with what we like to do in our hallways. And I really feel like this year's theme, maybe more so than some of our years in the past, we were able to do a lot. There's just a lot of stuff out there, a lot of great ideas, a lot of things that you can order online and everything like that that go along with this theme. But I also felt like there were a lot of materials that made for some simple things that made a really big and fun impact, especially in our hallways. Our church has 3 big hallways. We decorated 2 of them kind of the same, and then we have like a side hallway that we always decorate a little differently for our older kids. That's where their classes take place. And so let's see some of the things that we did here. This is a combination of a lot of stuff that we did, and like I said, a lot of easy and simple materials. Up hanging in our ceilings, we bought the corrugated stone roll paper, and then we mounted that just on a really thin board. Okay, we cut it to have the stone look at the top so that it looked like the top of a castle. And then we have hanging ceilings, and so those little thin boards that this is stapled to are just going up with maybe some zip ties or some rope or some chains that are hanging from the ceiling. And we were able to put those in different places in our hallway, so as you're walking down the hall, felt like you were kind of in the castle. Another thing that I think our decorators do a really good job at is they use the features of our building to always make something fun. So you'll see as you look down this hallway, there's some little columns that stick out. Okay, they come up with a great way to use these little columns every year. If we happen to be in a jungle or in the rainforest, or even when we were in Australia a few years ago, those columns become the tree trunk. And then they put leaves on the top of each one of those columns. This year, they ended up wrapping those in the fadeless, it's called fadeless stone paper. It's like a bulletin board roll paper that you can get. They wrapped a lot of things in that. They wrapped cardboard boxes and set them on top of our counters to make it look like they were on pillars. They wrapped the front of our nursery counter here. And then we also integrated a lot of the clip art that comes with the digital resources that you can have. And we do have at our church a large format printer, which allows us to print a lot of these things really big. It's kind of like being able to print our own scene setters, which is really nice to have. But you might be able to use a local print shop, or you could print these in smaller pages, maybe on 11 by 17, and then tape them together. So you see that we used a lot of stained glass windows, the shields, the banners, and we hung those up just by using fishing line that went up to ceiling grid hooks in our ceilings. And so these were made, we mounted them onto cardboard. And to mount them onto cardboard, I used mostly double-sided carpet tape. And so just in little sections. So I would take a big piece of cardboard, and I would put maybe down the side, if I was making this 5-foot banner here on the side, I would maybe take 5 little squares down the side, 5 little squares down the other side, and peel that off double-sided, lay it down, and once it was on the cardboard, then we would go around the banner and cut the cardboard out afterwards. Then you kind of got to go, if it starts to bubble in spots, maybe you need to add a little tape here, a little tape there, like down at the bottom of where the points are. where add a little tape at that as well. But they do stick there really well using double-sided carpet tape. Some people like to use spray adhesive. That gets on my arms and then I'm sticky for the rest of the day, so I don't like to use that. But there's lots of different ways to adhere either your scene setters to cardboard. When you go around the room here and you see these scene setters, they're on this coroplast. When you receive the scene setters, they're a poster material, so they're a paper material, and you have to come up with a way to adhere those to some sort of a solid surface. And so these, you could use coroplast like you see these on. We use coroplast for some things, but it does get kind of expensive. And the way you can find coroplast is talk to a local sign shop. They'll be able to supply that to you. We use cardboard for everything that we do. We actually found a local cardboard company, a factory in our town, and we order cardboard in 4-foot by 8-foot sheets. And we use all of that to use for our set building as well as a lot of our decorating. So everything that you see here that's mounted on cardboard is these 4-foot by 8-foot sheets that we use. That would be the stained glass windows, the banners, and everything like that. So you also see some very easy ideas that don't really cost a lot here. We have some teenage girls in our church who have a great ability to write like this, okay? And so we just took some large butcher paper and gave them a Sharpie, and they did, throughout our whole church, they had taken all the different verses, all the different pieces of armor, and just free-handed these signs, and they were huge, and we just taped them up onto the walls. I know that taping on walls is dangerous, right? So a couple different ways that you can do that. You can use what's called marvelous tape. If you've ever heard of that, that's an artist tape that doesn't leave any residue. Another way that you can do it is you can put a layer of painter's tape on the wall first, and then tape to the painter's tape, all right? And so you've protected your walls. And then with the painter's tape, that'll peel off without leaving a residue, and then you can use regular tape going on to that. You can do that with sticky tack as well, or just use like a nail gun. Nobody will be mad at you if you do that. So, and then I've also, I can honestly tell you that this year we destroyed a whole classroom. We used one of our wonderful, amazing volunteers grabbed the wrong type of tape. Has that ever happened to you? And guess what? Paint is cheap, okay? 1 gallon of paint does a whole room. It's not that expensive, and we were able to go ahead and fix that room as soon as VBS was over. We don't like to do that, but if it does happen, 1 gallon of paint can go a really long way. And it's for the kingdom, right? So I forgot to say that at the beginning. Getting excited about decorations, as you can tell as a church, we kind of go all out for decorations. We go all out for our set. And it's not so that we can have the best set in town and the best decorations in town. We really have a kingdom focus with our decorations because the awe that hits the kids when they come in. And then you've got their attention, right? They know that this is a big deal. They know that this is serious. It also gives you excitement within your people. When your volunteers walk in and every bit of that building is on theme and you've worked so hard, they're a part of something bigger, right? They're a part of something better, and they're excited to be a part of that. And it also gives you a great standing in your community because they see that you're doing something for God and you're doing it with excellence, which should be everything that we do for the Lord, right? Everything should be done with excellence. And I understand that within doing it for excellence, we have budgets and we have to stay within budget. And we have constraints and things like that, but that doesn't interfere with our ability to do something within excellence. So here you have basically some ideas that don't cost a lot. Creating your own posters with the armor of God on it. You see right next to it there, that yellow strip of paper, and I'm going to show, it's actually, and here's another one in an orange color. We did this all over our hallways, and it's just the roll plastic tablecloths. Or you can just use either the roll plastic and cut them, or just buy the dollar store tablecloths. We tucked them into the ceiling tile. We didn't even attach them to anything. We just tucked them in, and we tied a little string around them, a little piece of yarn, and now we have, decorative curtains all over the room. And I know what you're asking, Mr. Matt. You did not attach that to anything. Were they still up on Tuesday, right? Yes, they were. They were still up on Friday. Because every Monday at VBS, I just say, hey, kids, every day we do a daily contest, and your team can win. And when you win, you get to come up on stage, and you get a big piece of candy bar. And if you tear down one decoration, your whole team loses for the week. And I've never lost a decoration. And so the power of Skittles, okay? And so it's really good. And so our kids know, and they'll be the ones that tell you they tore down a decoration. That other team there, that other fifth grade team, they can't win ever again. My fifth grade team can. Some other really inexpensive ideas. You see, we put torches everywhere, and those torches are simply a piece of construction paper and a couple pieces of tissue paper and a little bit of tape. I think these are really cool. I guess that's the one negative thing that, when we do this a year ahead of time, these don't exist yet for us. And so everything that we do, we have to make ourselves. We don't have the ability to order these things. So here's a little up close of what I was talking about earlier with our people using the features of our building really well. Those are really the steel beams of our building that hold our building together, and they're covered in drywall. And so just by taking and wrapping that column, we were able to make those columns look like stone columns. Another really good idea that I liked around here, I'm going to zoom in on it a little bit here. So like I said, we printed these stained glass windows. We hung those on fishing line, so those are not attached to the wall. They are just floating there, hanging on fishing line. Here's those torches that I was saying. But that exact same paper that we wrapped the columns with, our decorators just ripped a bunch of squares of it. Just went around and ripped squares, ripped squares, ripped squares, ripped squares, ripped squares, and then they just randomly put them with painter's tape all over the wall. Here's a square, here's a square, here's a square, all different shapes, all different sizes. One roll of paper can decorate your whole hallway just by putting random square here, there. I mean, it went a long way, and it looked so cool. It made it look like, so here's just an up close of it, just randomly torn. One roll of paper can go a really long way. And so this is the paper that I talked about. It's called Fadeless is the name of it. And they sell this in a rock wall or a cobblestone or something like that, I believe is what it's called, but you can find that online in a lot of different places. You also see that we did order some decorations. We just hung these banners. These triangular flags. They come in 100-foot rolls and just zigzag them across the ceiling, again using ceiling grid hooks. And we just did this down our very long hallways. It was quick. It was easy. They're not that expensive. And we've used them for many different VBSs. So we did not buy these for this VBS. We've had them for probably 10 years. We've probably used them 3 or 4 times. They pack up really well. I thought this next idea was also pretty exciting. A very simple, inexpensive, and you don't need any skill to do it. Any unskilled people here today? All right. You ready to see an unskilled idea? Can you tape a piece of paper to the wall? Right? I never thought plain gray construction paper taped to the wall could look so good. But they went around most of our classroom doors and just did this, and we had instant stone entryways all over the building, right? And just some upright, some sideways. They staggered them just a little bit, and they did this for pretty much every classroom. If you just do this, your hallways are going to look amazing, right? Every classroom door is done. And then you add some of those rocks with one roll of paper that you got, and you'll notice kind of underneath the crow there, I forgot to mention this. On that paper, after they ripped it, they crinkled it up and then flattened it back out to give it a little bit of dimension as well. And then they taped it up to the walls. Another thing that we have in our building, you probably have this too, we have those coat racks, right? That have like where you can put your Bible up top and then hang 3 or 4 coats on the bottom. Well, it's summer, it's VBS. We don't need those, okay? we used this corrugated roll paper and a whole bunch of zip ties, and we just zip tied the corrugated paper right to our coat racks. And so the coat racks are behind there. Just gives a little bit of dimension. That coat rack runs that entire length of that hallway. Again, we just took the corrugated paper and trimmed the top to make it look like this top of a castle design. It doesn't come like that when you buy it, it's all flat. But this is the corrugated paper, but it matches the flat, uncorrugated paper really well. And so it stands up on its own because it's corrugated when you cut the little triangles out. And right below the little notches is where our coat rack is. And so you're just taking a zip tie, wrapping it around the coat rack, and it's done pretty quickly, and it leaves a really big impact. All right, so there's that close-up that I showed you before of that. This next one I want to show you is another idea that two of our teenage girls spent about 3 straight days making this next feature. It took a lot of time, but it didn't cost a lot, but it had an amazing impact. In the middle of our church, we have a courtyard, and it's got a bunch of glass and to go outside. So this is like an exit door, but it's a courtyard, so it's in the middle of our church. And so these wonderful 2 teenage girls spent 3 days with a bunch of electrical tape and a stack of tissue paper and made this for us. Okay? They did 2 of these, one on each side of the courtyard. They were amazing. And they just cut triangles and stuff, and one would do 1 piece of tape, and then they're doing the next section, the next section, and the next section, and made these amazing stained glass windows. That's 2 ingredients to bake this cake, okay? Tissue paper and electrical tape. I also have to give a shout out to my son, who spent 4 days getting the tape residue off the windows, okay? So you might find something better than electrical tape, because in that June heat and the sun beating on those windows, it did kind of leave a residue. So he spent a lot of time with razor blades, rubbing alcohol, all kinds of stuff like that. But guess what? It came clean eventually. He would work for a couple hours until his fingers didn't work anymore, and then he'd come back the next day. But wow, think about any large piece of glass that you have in your building, and you can do something like this. The electrical tape, like I said, there might be a better type of black tape out there to use that you might want to investigate. Maybe there's a black masking tape that won't leave a residue. And this was on the inside of our building. This is in one of our main hallways. And so it's tissue paper, and if it gets wet or somebody just pokes their finger, they can rip it easily. But again, it lasted the whole week because I told the kids they would lose all their points and not get any Skittles. All right? So one of the questions that I get a lot is, how do you do like big printed things and make it work? So this hallway is, I kind of showed you our main hallways. This is our back hallway where our older students go for their classes and crafts and everything like that. So this hallway, we decided we were going to make it a dragon's lair. Okay, so I'll be showing you a few things in this hallway. This dragon's lair, we had this giant clip art dragon that we were able to print on our large format printer. It came out in about 5 different sheets that then we had to mount onto cardboard. And so the way that I did that is I laid sheets of cardboard maybe vertically, and then behind it I did it horizontally and made a giant like crisscross pattern to give it some stability, and I attached those pieces together using cardboard or carpet tape, the double-sided carpet tape, and then we laid the prints on these long sheets on top of that, and then and taped them all together, double-sided tape again, lined them all up, and then a couple of ladies just came and with snap-off cardboard knives trimmed out both the outside of the dragon and the 2 layers of cardboard that it was attached to. Every single tooth on that dragon was trimmed out by these wonderful ladies. And then it's like now you have this giant 9-foot tall 15-foot-long floppy cardboard dragon. How do I make it stand up in the middle of a hallway with these tiny little feet and everything like that? And I got to the point a couple years ago that I don't need to hide everything, right? Kids have great imaginations, so I end up using pipe and drape poles that we have in our church for segmenting some things, but you could use brackets and things like that. And so what I did was we got a bunch of people and we held the dragon up to these posts, and then I just poked a hole and bought red zip ties and just zip tied it over and over to these posts, around the post and back, and then it was ready. And then its tail, actually, you see, well, how is his tail going there? His tail is attached with fishing line in several places going up to the ceiling, okay? He's attached at the back of the dragon, but he's also hanging from the ceiling as well. And so the feet didn't really even touch the ground on there, but you can do this with wood brackets as well. You can zip tie, or you can attach with screws as well. And so also down that same hallway, kind of opposite the hall, we use black roll tablecloth, or actually this is black paper going down the walls. We use black and red roll tablecloth to just cover the whole ceiling, and we had lots of torches and on the wall. And of course, if we're in a dragon's lair, we needed his gold loot that he was protecting. You know, a little Hobbit, Lord of the Rings throwback there. This was just a pile of cardboard boxes that were taped together, and then we stapled the cellophane, gold and silver paper to it in a lot of different spots. So we just kind of built that in place. The other pilot church, in their dragon hallway, they did not use the roll tablecloth. They used the plastic netting to make their dragon's lair hallway. They did a smaller dragon at the end of their hallway as well. So that's another way. I will tell you that when you're hanging stuff from the ceiling, if you have sprinklers, you probably can't do this. And if you have security cameras, you need to talk to your security team, and you need to avoid those as best you can. Maybe you have to cut out an area or something like that. Here's sort of the other angle of that netting, that plastic netting that you could buy. We used a lot of this when we were in Zoomerang as well, when we were going to, when we did the Cooper PD. And I loved what the other pilot church did with cardboard and some paper towel tubes to make these chandeliers. They had these all around their building, just a handful of paper towel tubes or toilet roll tubes, tissue paper, and the cardboard base to make these really fun chandeliers, and they hung them all around their building. All right, so there is some of the ideas, some basic things and simple things that we did in our hallways. Answers in Genesis has an amazing scene setter poster set that has the dragon legends on them, and I've seen those around here. They're another way. If you've been to the Creation Museum, you've seen these dragon legend posters as you're entering the Creation Museum, and they have this set that's available for you to order. It's another great way to decorate your hallways, and there's some other great ideas that they have. So now let's move on to some welcome areas. We want the kids, when they walk in the building, to know right away that it's not a normal Sunday, right? And this is not normal church. This is VBS, and it's going to be an amazing week. And so the other pilot church had a way to create a castle that the kids got to walk through as they entered. This is kind of in their main foyer, but also entering into their worship center, into their auditorium. So you can use some brick paper, some easy cardboard turrets and flags, and then they made some paper chains just to hang down from that. We did something similar that I'll show you a little bit later as the entryway into our worship center as well. We have a welcome zone right in front of our main doors where everybody walks in, and we just want them, like I said, to know that. But this is also a great place for family photos to take place, and also your classroom photos to take place. So these are 4x8 sheets of cardboard that our painting team paints. All of the banners were painted by hand as well. The cute little dog wearing a jester costume was all painted by hand. And the good thing is like our birds and our chickens that we always randomly put around, and squirrels and bunnies that you see there, those have been painted on cardboard, and we have been reusing those small animals for years. And we always keep them, and we have the big welcome sign there that you can see that one of our painting team painted as well. The other pilot church also had a fun little jester place where you could go and get a photo. Of course, there's some fun scene setters back over that way that you can cut the face out of and stick your face through there. And the kids always love those sort of photo zones so they can get a picture with their family or get a picture with their team. A few years ago, Answers VBS came up with some fabric backdrops for the craft rooms. And this is what we do use as a church, and we can use these every year. Here's an example of that. You might have seen these if you were down in any of the craft sessions. We put these up. They're fabric. They're basically like a shower curtain, and they are fantastic. A quick and easy way to decorate your craft room. We use pipe and drape poles. Some people hang them from the ceiling. Other people put them on frames. They have the same thing for the science rooms, and we reuse these every year. They fold up very neatly and fit into a very small box and don't take up any room. They also just recently came out with the snack backdrops as well, and these are not thematic to the year, they're just thematic to the room, so you can reuse these every year. But in our snack area, we always have one room where we serve the snacks out of. It's not really the room where the kids come, but it's where our kitchen is and where all the snacks are coming in and out of, and so we always like to decorate that room. This is the room I told you about earlier that we used the wrong type of tape with, and we got to repaint this room when VBS was over, but we used plastic, stone, paper, that we were supposed to put painter's tape down first, but we didn't. And then we just asked people to, we borrowed a lot of pots and pans from people. Give us your old rusty pan that you don't want anymore. And we hung those from the ceiling. We just hung a lot of baskets from the ceiling and laid them out on the tables as well. And I'll show you up close some of these decorations that we used at meetings. We also ended up using, in some of our classrooms, we had some tabletop decorations that we used. Now let's move into our teaching classroom. There's two great ways to do the teaching classroom. You saw this scene setter set over here. We had that up on the stage earlier. Like I said, that's going to come as paper that you're going to want to mount to some sort of substrate like cardboard or coroplast or foam core. There is you can order through a sign shop foam core that is sticky on one side that you peel back, and then you can put posters on. It's not the most budget-friendly thing out there, but if you're doing it in small quantities, it might be the easiest way to do things. So we have those scene setter sets that you see. You can get creative with this. If you're going to use the puppet, you could maybe cut out maybe the shield over the fireplace or one of the banners or something like that so that it comes open and closed for your puppet to pop out of. And so you can see that our pilot church just adhered some of these to the wall in their classroom. So if you don't want to mount them onto substrate, you can attach them to your walls as well. All right? We did DIY classrooms this year, and of course, we actually built this set for our early meetings that we had for our core team. We used it again for our master teacher meeting, and then it became a classroom set. This was what we used in our pre-K in kindergarten classroom area. The pre-primaries had this as their backdrop. And so what we ended up doing was going to the hardware store, Lowe's, Home Depot, and we bought brick paneling. It was a 4x8 sheet of brick paneling. And it comes as a red brick with black grout. And our painting team went and painted some of it gray and some of it yellow and gold. And then they went back and just touched up some of the bricks to make it a slightly different color. So what you're seeing there, the gray is 4x8 sheets standing vertically. And then there's a couple of smaller sheets, like a half a sheet that made the turret, and a half a sheet that kind of made the other outside that we painted yellow and gold. That was one sheet that they painted, and then we cut it into two pieces to make that. The cardboard turret on the top is just a single piece of cardboard that was painted, and then we have just a board going up the middle that keeps that from flopping over. We took some carpet tubes. That's what's in the middle. It's like a thick carpet tube, and we wrapped it with this stuff called Better Than Paper, and it really is better than paper. It's roll stuff. It's like a bulletin board material, but it's really thick. It's almost like wallpaper. And they had this wood design, so I wrapped it with that and just taped it on there. Just did some black roll paper that we kind of cut in a scallop thing and put that on top of there as well. And then we printed from the clip art a barrel and some flowers, and we also painted a few animals and things like that. And we painted the trees that you see there. And then on the turret, you see those little windows that somebody would use to shoot arrows out of. That's just a strip of black cardboard that was attached to the front of that after it was all said and done. And so this became a classroom. We actually made 2 of these sets. And then here's sort of an up close of that, and you see that stained glass window that was there was hiding our puppet stage. And so that was cut out of the paneling, and I just had that stained glass window on a piece of cardboard. There was a hole at the top, and there was just a screw poking out that we would just hang the window on, and when it was time for the puppet to come out, we just popped the window off the screw, set it down, did our puppet show, and then popped it back on when we were done. And so it just kind of hung there on a single screw and everything. So that was a simple little way to do that as well, and just a fun way to incorporate the puppet into our classroom set. All right. With our younger kids' classrooms, we also do exploration stations. This is our active learning, active play, learning by playing. We were to buy some small tents and put up some other posters and some nights that you can order online as well. And you can kind of see the different zones that we had. We had a dress-up zone and a coloring zone and a touch table zone and things like that. And every day those zones would change just a little bit to go along with the daily theme. So we've gotten through the classrooms, we've gotten through the hallways, and now to the big part. The moment you've all been waiting for, right? This is our main set. And so I'm going to show you both the main set that we did at our church as well as the one that the other pilot church did. And you'll see that they are very different and very different ideas. You've, of course, seen the scene setters. So we're able to come up with these ideas and then share these ideas, and the scene setters are made after we come up with our ideas. And so we designed our set in 3 areas, okay? So we had 3 areas to our main set. So we had the center part, which was the exterior and entrance to the castle. We had, on the one side, we had the king's manor, if you will, or the king's room, and it was very royal and regal with all of the red and the windows and the fire and everything like that. And then we had an exterior courtyard to the castle where some of the drama took place, and the best part was our Dragon's Keep, okay? That is the green little layer that's off to the side there on the far side. So we'll just kind of take a few moments to see how we did each different zone as we zoom in. Also, you'll see that down front on the floor below our stage, we kind of made that look like a moat. And, you know, if you study history, you'll probably see that alligators are not in moats, but they are at VBS, okay? And so are turtles and fish and all the other fun stuff that we like to include into our moats. We had a few of those little free-floating moats as you came down each aisle in our worship center. We have 3 main aisles, a middle one and 2 side aisles. They were kind of in front, so no matter what aisle you walked down, there was a little moat sitting there in front of you. And so you'll see that this castle, it had a big main entrance that the actors would walk in and out of, and that was elevated about a foot off of the floor, and we just used a sheet of black plywood in order to make a little ramp. It sort of looked like a drawbridge that they were going into. This is 100% painted cardboard. Okay, everything you see there is painted cardboard. And like, another question I get all the time, how long does it take you to paint this set? Right? So we do order about 250 sheets of cardboard. We don't use all of that for the painting, and it lasts us for a lot of other projects we do in our children's ministry throughout the year and everything like that. But we spend 3 weeks painting our set. We take over our entire gymnasium. Our children's ministry meets in our gymnasium. We end up moving for a month to our student ministry, our youth and teens room. They're gracious enough to give us their room for a month, and we lay plastic over every square inch of our gymnasium, and for 3 weeks, nothing happens in that room except for painting, all right? And that happens typically 1 month before VBS begins, so it's 3 straight weeks of painting, 1 straight week of building the set, and then VBS begins, all right? So it is a 4-week project for painting and building. And so we have some amazing volunteers that come in the morning, they come in the afternoon, they come in the evening. For 3 straight weeks, we typically work Monday through Thursday, and we give everybody Friday off that comes in. Some people that are doing smaller projects may come in, grab a piece of cardboard, take it home and paint it, but most people come together, and it ends up being like a great time for the people in your church to come together and hang out and serve together. And I love it when you get to serve with others because we're all on mission together, and people just really enjoy doing that. So we use a lot of overhead projectors, a lot of transparencies to project this stuff. When somebody walks into our gymnasium, everything they need is out on a table ready for them to grab and go. Everything has been set up. We have all the paint out. It's all labeled. We have distributed, if they're doing small projects with a brush, we have poured paint into styrofoam cups for them and covered those cups with a piece of aluminum foil so that they can walk in, grab their chicken, their cardboard chicken, their yellow paint and all of this, and somebody has most likely already traced it out. They've written on there what colors. It's a color by number system. They sit down at their plastic covered table and they paint their chicken, and then they move on to the next one, or they make their stained glass window or their horse or their alligator. And so that is the system that we do. And so we have some people who have been doing it for a really long time that know exactly what they're doing, and they're able to come in. We have people who are experts at painting brick. And so the technique that they use for painting the exterior of this castle is they use what's called a double roller. It's about this wide, but it has 2 rollers on each side, and you get a divided tray, and you put 2 different colors of paint. So you roll that in, you get 2 different colors, and then when you roll it, you crisscross the colors. I'm not talented enough to do this, but I have people who are, and that's how they make sort of the stone look on all of that yellow and all of that orange you see. It's actually 2 different colors of paint that they're rolling on top of each other, and then they just come back with a big sponge and just put a few bricks. A brick here, a brick there, and then you've got these giant panels that are ready to be put together to build the castle. All of those panels correlate, have a number and a letter system, and this has all been drawn out and sketched out ahead of time, and it goes together like a giant jigsaw puzzle. Our painting team is not our construction team. Right? We got all the guys who wear tool belts and stuff like that, and they come in and they've got a packet, and it's got the jigsaw puzzle drawn on it. They find A1 and put it up, and A2 below it, and A3 next to it, and all of that stuff. We were able to build some dimension into it as well by kind of making I call it the bay window there, the big orange piece that's coming off. And then we layer things in front of it. We have some freestanding candeliers or torches, and those are just standing on a bracket, freestanding, these little colorful hills, and even here's another one with a horse on it. The horse is just attached to a piece of cardboard, and in a moment I'll show you what it looks like on the back side of that, okay? And so we also make these smaller little castle pieces at the front. That's just to kind of add a little stuff to the very front of the stage without it getting in the way or blocking anything else. So that's kind of the main entryway to the set. You probably see that really cool window up there. We did not use that window. You could not get to that window. As a matter of fact, right behind that window was another piece of cardboard that you can't see, but it just looked like you could use that window, but it didn't really it was not functional. It was just there for looks. Over here is our King's Manor. This, again, is all painted on cardboard, and everything is really just one flat piece there, with the curtains are painted right onto the same piece of cardboard as the windows. Then we painted some columns, we painted some torches, we painted more stained glass, and just kind of layered everything up. So behind all of this cardboard are our stage flats, which are 4x8 wooden frames that we screw everything to, and I'll show you those in just a moment. I wanted to show you sort of our fun entryway to our worship center. This was sort of our drawbridge that we came up with, and so this was fun. You'll see there in the middle our wood entryway. It's just 2 pieces of paneling that we bought at the hardware store, and we just taped them to the floor. We're using gaff tape with no residue. We made some 4-foot by 4-foot little cardboard moats, and coming out of the moat, those are just sitting on a piece of wood that's just sitting on the floor. We bought some plastic chain that came down, and we just kind of hung that up there to make it look like you could raise and lower that. And one of our amazing artists painted this really cool dragon that you see over here. And we were just able to put that on those same pipes that I showed you with the other dragon earlier. And so this was a fun, every kid wanted to walk in that entrance to the worship center. They didn't want to go into any of the other entrances. The other pilot church did their set very differently than ours, but they have some awesome ideas as well. So they have their exterior of the castle there in the middle. Theirs is a very different style of painting than we did, and a very different color scheme than we did. They always hang up a big backdrop, but their set is always fun to see. They came up with a little town that they had off to the side as well. I got a little close-up of that, where you just kind of paint on cardboard these buildings and the windmill and everything. They did create some entrances for their drama to come in and out, and then they also highlighted all the different pieces of the armor at the top of their set on both sides. And so you see they made a giant banner with every piece of the armor, which I really thought was a great idea. And I really like what they did too. This doesn't work in our building, but in their building, they were able to bring some of the set out over top of the kids. And just by pulling these banners from the front of the set to the back of their auditorium, they were able to add that fun color over the entire room. So we got 5 minutes left, and then so I just wanted to spend these last 5 minutes talking about how we build what we build and show you some of the behind the wall of what you see up there, and some tools and things that I've already talked about. First thing that we do when we build our set, we use screws. We do not use staples. The difference is screws come out easily, staples do not. And so when you see this giant set, there is not a staple up there. We use tons of 1-inch screws to screw every piece of cardboard to the flats that I'll show you in a minute. You're thinking, well, Mr. Matt, then don't you see like 1,000 screw heads? Well, if you walk up and get this close, you do see the screw heads, but your kids are gonna be 20 feet away from it, and you don't see all of those. And then because you're only screwing cardboard together, those screws all come out, and then you can use them again next year, and again next year, and again next year. And you can also share your decorations with somebody else. They have some little holes in them, but that just shows them where they can put the screws. And if you use staples, it just does not come apart as easily, all right? We use these flats. This is the pilot church. It's similar to what you see on the back side of all of the scene setters as you go around. There's different ways that you can build these. You can build them in all different dimensions. This is the back side of that giant entryway to the castle that you saw. You see that these are 4x8 frames. They're made out of 2x3s and a piece of 1/4-inch plywood, which is called Luan. I probably have about 30 or 40 of these, and we reuse them every year. I painted them black on the front side. That way, if you put something up there that has a hole in it, it just kind of, like say you put a tree, and the tree has a trunk, and it kind of, there's some areas cut out of there. If you if you attach that to a piece of black, you don't even notice it on the set. And so you see, we're able to put those 2 or 3 high. This set ended up being a little over 20 feet tall when it was all said and done. So we ended up with a 4 foot by 8, another 4 by 8, and then 4 foot going the other way. So that gave us a 20-foot tall wall right in the middle of our stage. So we build the wall first, build the giant wall, and then you just go up and start attaching your jigsaw puzzle pieces, screwing them to that wall. We did the exact same thing underneath our screens, where you saw like our King's Manor and everything. We built a wall underneath our screen and attached the cardboard to that, and we built walls on either side of the screen. So those flats, we stack those up in our garage, and we bring them out every year, and we reuse them all the time. The way that the flats stand up, you kind of saw it in this picture, is we make what we call stage jacks, which are just an L bracket, and there's lots of different ways that you can build those as well. You'll see those on the back side of these. We build ours out of 2x4s and 2x3s. We probably have 100 of these that stack up in our garage all year, and we reuse those over and over and over again. You can Google stage flats and stage jacks. This is the same style that they would use to build professional sets for plays and things like that. It gives you this wonderful wall that you can then attach other things to and not mess up your church walls, right? So I built a wall right in front of our church walls, and then I can attach anything I want to that wall, and then I can even attach stuff even higher than that. You don't need a flat on everything. If you're just hanging up cardboard, you see you can just use a piece of wood coming off of that flat to hold up your tower or your turret or something like that. I already talked about the different types of tape that I use. I use painter's tape, I use Marvelous tape, and I use a double-sided carpet tape for adhering scene setters or printouts to paper. If you have hanging ceilings, we have buckets of these, different ceiling grid hooks that you can get at the hardware store. And we hang all of our hallway decorations up with that. It just helps not to chip your ceiling tiles and things like that. Instead of popping your tiles up and wrapping around them, that can tend to chip and cause damage to your ceiling tiles. I've also used for heavier things that we're hanging, like from the ceiling, we use a steel cable. It's a thin steel cable that can hold like a couple 100 pounds, and we use these steel cable locks, and those are ratcheting, so you just put the cable in the lock, and it just holds it, and you can adjust the height. Around our worship center, we reuse these every year, too. These are from a couple of years ago. These are our signs that we make out of PVC pipe that have all of our team names on them. These are from Zoomerang, that's why they're the frilled neck lizards, but I reuse these as well. If you build sign stands out of PVC, I would encourage you not to glue them together. That way you can take them back apart and they store a lot easier. So these are a 3/4 inch piece of plywood. It's 1 foot by 1 foot. That is called a flange. That's screwed to that, and then you're able to put the PVC pipe into the flange. At the top, we do a 90-degree bend in the little pipe, and then we print those on regular paper. We laminate them, we hole punch them, and then we use binder rings to hang those up. When the kids come in, they can find their row of where their team is sitting that day, and that's where they check in, and that's where that they register. One last idea I'll show you as I'm a minute over time. We do big meetings at the beginning to kind of inspire our volunteers and to get them going. We do these fun table decorations. That's another bit of that better than paper. I took 4x4s, I cut them to different lengths, and I burnt them with a blowtorch to get that look, and then I went on Amazon and I bought giant upholstery tacks and just hammered them into the side around the top. I did some that had 1 large tack on each side, some that had 3 on each side, and then we just put some pillar candles on top of them, some fake fruit. We bought some wood coasters and drilled holes in them to make pen holders, and we just bought some cheap plastic pens and some cheap feathers and wrapped them in tape to make quill pens for all of our volunteers to have. When the volunteers walked into the room, our core team did not know what the theme was, but they walked into the room and the tables were decorated like that. We had our big set up on the stage, and we instantly inspired them to get ready for VBS. And the last thing I would tell you is that every year during our VBS, I do a walkthrough video of every decoration that we do at our church. So every picture that you saw on the screen today, the front of the stage, the back of the stage, I do a walkthrough video. There's a whole bunch of them. They're on the Answers VBS YouTube page. If you didn't hear me enough today, you can hear me for hours at home, and you can see as I walk down each hallway, point out every decoration and how we made it, as well as how we hung it and how we built it. So, all right. Thank you so much, everyone. Be inspired. I know I just gave you about 1,000 ideas today. Take a handful of them and do them with excellence for Jesus. Thank you, guys.